where I'm only going to give my all before a launch. So I can kind of prep them. I can bring in some new people. I can share what I'm doing because I'm always very excited during a launch. It takes a lot of energy, but I'm always super excited, and it's easy. So much easier to be on social media when you're excited about what is coming and what you're doing now than it is to try to come up with things randomly throughout the season. So for me, I make my own seasons where I'm more active on social media.
Welcome to Quilting on the Side, the podcast where we uncover the secrets to turning your passion for quilting into a profitable side hustle.
I'm Tori from the Quilt Patch by Tori.
And I'm Andi from True Blue Quilts. And together we're your co-hosts on this exciting journey of creativity, entrepreneurship, and all things quilting.
We're here to help you navigate the world of quilt pattern design, course creation, digital marketing, and running an online quilt business. We've been through the ups and downs ourselves, so we know what it takes to make money from your favorite hobby.
Welcome to another episode of Quilting on the Side, our business-focused podcast for quilters and crafters who want to make a little bit of money from their efforts. And today we are tackling that huge monster that intimidates a lot of people, social media. And we know it's a great way to connect with your audience. Everybody lives in the digital world these days, so it's a very important feature of your business. So we wanted to share a little bit about our various efforts in the online space and digital marketing, and talk about maybe some of the things that have worked, the things that haven't worked, because you always learn more from your failures than those successful efforts. So Tori, tell us a little bit about the Quilt Patch by Tori and your digital marketing efforts over the last few years.
So when I first started the Quilt Patch by Tori, I was selling quilts, so handmade quilts. And I had no idea what I was doing. I used a Facebook group instead of a website. So I had my quilts listed up there in a Facebook group, and I was just inviting people in, and I would talk about what I was making. I would post sneak peeks of the quilts that I was making. And then I started getting like custom orders, and they slowly started coming in. And I had run an experiment where, and what I'm about to say, I do not suggest that you do this. Do not do this. But I went and joined every social media platform that was out at that time, which was, if I remember right, it was Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and there was one more, Alignable.
Mm-hmm.
And that one's still around. That one's actually growing a little bit more. That one's just for businesses. But I joined like 5 different social media. I feel like there's one more, but I joined so many. Oh, TikTok. No, that was a little bit later. That was during the pandemic, but I joined all of them. And I gave myself a goal to post consistently for 3 months. I'm trying to post every day for 3 months. Now, I do not suggest to do that. That was crazy. But what I was trying to do was to find my customer. I didn't know where they were. I didn't know where my community was. I had an idea that it was possibly Instagram because I had seen the most like quilt activity on there. But my approach was trying to find the quilters, which quilters don't typically want to buy quilts. They want to make quilts. But you will find a few people in there who love quilts so much that they will also buy. But that's what I did. And then it was insane. I ran into burnout really quick. But I also figured out how to post every day. And that was really valuable. How to take shots of the details, how to figure out where I want to put my camera, what filters I like to use, and then how I can take one post and put it in a couple different places, depending on that platform. And then when I switched to pattern design and workshops, that was when I got strategic. That's when I started to figure out, how much do I actually have to post? What do I actually need to be posting? And how can I figure this out? Like, so I don't have to scramble every day trying to figure out what to post, what to put up there. And then I did it so much that I hit burnout.
Mm-hmm. Such a common feeling of the social media hamster wheel. You just get exhausted and then you stop showing up, and it's an endless cycle.
Andi, what was your experience when you first started with social media?
I actually, since I'm a little bit older, I started a blog, and that was my first entry into the quilt world. And I remember the very initial stages of Facebook when it was all about posting your life and your lunch and sharing game progress and stuff. So it was definitely a pivot to professional content. I resisted Instagram for a while just because I liked my blog more, but then blogging kind of went out of fashion for a few years, and there weren't the quilt communities as active on blogs as there are. We've seen a resurgence that's come back these days. So it took me a little bit longer to get on the Instagram bandwagon, but yeah, I was on Twitter for a while, but since that's very heavily text-based and quilting and crafting are visual and tactile experiences, it just makes more sense to stay on Instagram. And when I really wanted to kick off my quilt business, I set myself a challenge to go live on Facebook, and then I repurposed those onto YouTube because I really wanted the tutorial video aspect to be a component of my business. And so then I pivoted to YouTube, and that's kind of slowly reached the top of the list as my priority platform, because yes, as you mentioned, I quickly learned you cannot be in all the places all the time. So you have to focus your efforts.
Really, you really, really do.
So what have you found as a good structure for your social media workload?
So currently, let's go for an example. I think that might be easier to talk about and kind of explain for our listeners is an example. So you all know that I am mostly a course designer. That's what I do. I like to design courses and launch workshops, and I teach others how to do so. So one thing that I like to do, and the habit I started when I started doing workshops and promoting those, was when I create a workshop. First, I'm never really great at describing a workshop, so I really dived into how to figure that out. But what I would do at first was to post the workshop on my website and then leave it there for a day, and then go back to it and reread what I've written and make it like 10 times better. Because whenever I write the first time, it's horrible. So I always suggest that, like, go back and read it out loud so you know how it sounds when somebody is reading it. You've got your tone where you want it. You've got your what you mean is actually coming across, and it really helps when you read it out loud. And then after I post that, for social media, I pretty much copy my emails. So when I'm launching something, I take what I've written in my emails and I put it on social media, and I just use that as inspiration for those different things you want to talk about in workshop. But before it even starts, that's what I probably should start. So I post the description of the class. I know about when it's going to be or when it's going to be. And then I'll start with what do they need to know before they get in this class. And then I'll start posting about that, answering questions that might have to do with the class, warming them up with tips or tricks for, let's say it's an applique class. I did host a 3-day or like a 3-week one day a week applique workshop where I warm them up with talking about different stabilizers. I almost forget the word sometimes, but stabilizers, and just kind of warming them up to get them used to seeing me talk about applique, and then announcing the class, and then telling a story behind what I've created around the applique quilt that they will be creating in the class, and then talking about the problem it's going to solve. If anybody has taken this class before, I'll share what they have said. And if they have any work that they've shared with me, I will share that as well. And then I will do a closing post and just say, hey, this is the last call for this class. Come join us, and bring them in that way. That's awesome. Kind of my basic strategy there.
So it sounds like you as one of the classic planning phrases go, you begin with the end in mind, because you have to have your workshop in mind and then back it up to create a social media campaign and your different posts leading up to that. So getting really specific here with the tactics, how many posts, how far ahead do you start promoting an event online?
I try with those beginner questions, warming up my audience, the sneak peeks, all that about 2 weeks before the class, or at least I open the class.
Mm-hmm.
And I post, keep in mind, I got my posting down to about 3 times a week. I don't post every single day anymore. That is too much. And I do never suggest that for anyone, unless you are like pushing to grow on one platform. That might be a way, but that's if you're pushing and you really want to grow really fast. But for most of us, 3 times a week consistently is going to be a golden number. So I post 3 times a week. So that's about 6 posts before leading up to that. And then if I have something fun I'm creating in the moment, I'll put those on the stories, because I typically now focus on Instagram. So I'll have a carousel. And that's only, again, 3 times a week. And then if I have something inspirational that's going on, I try to share a little bit more of my stories during that time, because that does also help your views and your engagement if you also have other parts of that platform you're engaging with.
Yeah, that's an important aspect, is to take advantage of all the features of the platform, because if they spend the time developing and rolling out a new feature, then if you're an early adopter, then they'll definitely want to share your content out with more people, because they're trying to push that new feature. So like you said, you have a variety of things on Instagram. You want to share the different features that people should be taking advantage of?
Yeah, so on Instagram, there are your stories, which only last 24 hours. There are your single posts. So that's, and I forget the exact technical term for them, but they're just one post, one stagnant picture. And then you have carousels, which are like slides where you can slide through, I think up to 10. Currently it's 10. And then you also have reels, which are your short videos. You have lives, where you can go live, but you can also upload longer videos that go into like the reel section of your profile. But for each of those, you're going to want like different content, like the 24-hour stories. That's more to get to know you and what you're doing behind the scenes, more about your personal life, what you're doing in the moment, what's inspiring you right this second. And you're not just sharing the picture. That's one thing that I see a lot of creators in the quilting world do, is just share a post or share a picture and nothing else. But what's really going to help that story is to put your own spin or your own background thoughts or what you're doing in the moment, just adding a little text, a little sentence about, oh my gosh, this inspired me, or look what she is doing, or check out my new post. I was so excited to write this one. I was sitting in my kitchen and the leaf fell from the tree, and I just want to show you all my autumn color inspiration. Please go check it out and see what you think. I'd love to see what your autumn inspiration looks like. Just engage them a little bit more. Tell them more about what's happening in the moment. Give them a little background on why you posted that and that kind of thing. That's going to be really engaging. It's part of the getting to know you as a person part of Instagram, is the stories. And then the stagnant posts are really good for inspirational pictures. They're really good for lists, question asking. If you want to ask a question and you want it to last longer than 24 hours, your stagnant posts are really good. And then carousels are great for asking longer questions or giving longer answers, giving tips, giving those tricks where you need more text rather than like visual representation, as comparing to like a video, where we do a lot of tips and tricks in the quilting world with video, which is excellent for Instagram and for other platforms. And then right now, all of your posts on Instagram, and we're recording this in 2023 at the end, in the fall of 2023, your content is staying on there longer than it used to be. So it used to be that your content would be up and going through people's feeds and easy to search, or on the find screen, like 2 to 3 days. And then now it's lasting longer, around 5 to 7 days. So what you're posting is going to last longer. So again, don't think you have to do every single feature every single day. You can do 3 posts a week using a couple different features, and then whatever's inspiring you at the moment, throw it up in your stories. And if nothing's inspiring you at the moment, then don't post anything. We want to see you. We want to see your excitement. We want to see your inspiration. Do not burn yourself out just trying to come up with random things all over the place. Post what you're excited about. Post what you're really thinking. Give some story behind it, and yeah, it'll grow that way. And that's how you can use the different features. So one more thing about Reels. Reels right now is the best way to still expand your Instagram. It became huge in 2022. Reels right now is still big to reach new followers. So when you're posting Reels, post it and share it and talk like you're talking to people who do not know you. These people on the Reels, they do not know you. So talk like you are introducing yourself for the very first time to a stranger who found you on the internet, because that's most likely who you're going to be talking to. You're also, if you recognize the analytics behind all of this and look at your engagement numbers, you do see more of your followers than new followers that see your content, or I'm sorry, new people rather than existing followers that see your content. However, your content's only been showing to about up to 10%, typically lower, but up to 10% of the people who are already following you. So introducing yourself as if they've never met you before is still pretty safe, because the other 90% of your followers that might end up seeing that post that day may not remember who you are because they haven't seen your content, because Instagram is only showing them the really big blow up kind of reels, the ones that go viral or slightly viral. Mm-hmm. So keep that in mind. So introduce yourself many times like these are brand new people, because typically they will be.
Yeah. We sometimes forget in the when we get in the habit of just posting all the time, we forget that this is a social platform. And when you're being social, I mean, think of it as a party where you're mingling with a crowd, and you go up and you find an interesting conversation and you introduce yourself and talk about what the current topics are. So I always like to bring in things that are going on in the world. Now this is a little bit of a tangent in terms of safe topics for the online space, and I tend to steer clear of, politics and religion are going to be somewhat divisive. And so there are some brands that say go ahead and embrace it, stake your position, and people that agree with you will gravitate toward that. And if people don't agree with you, then they're not your perfect match anyway. So it's fine to take that stand. I just like my quilt space to be a happy place. And so I do avoid some of those controversial headline type topics, but I will bring in things like sports events, seasonal activities, those kind of things that you can use as a common ground that may not be specifically related to a quilt pattern, but it gives you a context and it gives you something to talk about.
In regards to politics and religion, I tend to not know enough when it comes to the world. Again, I have 2 jobs. I have 2 littles, and I don't feel like I ever have enough background information to post. I'm a history major by education. So I feel like I have to have resources and quotes and to be able to post on current events. And my current event radar is very small.
I mean, that's a great way to approach the world, is that you want to be educated before you speak on things and not just rattle off feelings a lot of times. So I think we all know the dangers of that. And the beauty of the online world is that it comes with a delete button. You can block people if a conversation starts veering off. You can shut down comments. You have control of your online space. It is your brand, your business, so you can control what happens within that sphere.
I do want to throw out, if you are a person who wants to support those political beliefs and religious beliefs, you can be someone who supports other creators that do take their time to put their brand in those spaces.
As we were talking in our pricing episode, that you want to make decisions that make you feel good, that's another thing to keep in mind when you're posting on social media, whether you feel the need to speak out on certain issues or maintain your silence, and have those conversations in person in real time when you can gauge someone's reaction better than a random quote on the internet. So I'll just share a little bit about my strategy, because I like to plan things out, and if I dedicate some time to doing a bunch of posts, it's easier for me to show up than having to do a task every single day or 3 times a week, as you were mentioning. So I like to use a content calendar and just, a simple spreadsheet with the days of the week and my ideas for what's coming up, so that, like you said, if I've got an event coming up, I can back it up and make sure I'm mentioning it multiple times so that my audience remembers, so that it has a better chance of reaching those people, because we all know the algorithms don't show every post to every person. So you don't want people to miss out just because you mention it once and they didn't happen to be online that day before it got buried in their feed.
I always like to say you want to annoy yourself with how much you talk about it.
Yeah, we all know that you sign up to follow a shop, and these big brands will send you product notifications every single day, sometimes 3 and 4 times a day. And you're like, I really, I went in for a pair of shoes. I don't need to hear from you every single day for 6 months. But, do you take the time to unsubscribe? Not always. So go ahead and talk to your people more. They want to hear from you. So I use the business suite to schedule my posts, so that I can sit down on the weekend when I have an hour of time and get at least a week's worth of posts scheduled ahead of time, and that frees up my time. It makes me a little more efficient. Do you work the same way?
I try to schedule as much as I can, especially when I know it's a big launch that I am planning and coming up with, because I know that day by day I'll be more and more drained, because I'm a full introvert, like as much as I talk online and do all this, as soon as I post one post, I feel exhausted. It's crazy how much interaction just drains me really fast. I feel like it got worse during COVID, but anyway, I try to schedule as much as I can, but many times I'll leave gaps because I know myself, and I'll know that while I'm deep in creating the post, while I'm deep in creating the workshops and the worksheets and coming up with descriptions and seeing where I should post them, I am in a creative mode where I will post randomly throughout the week, because that's just where the inspiration comes. It also depends on how much time I have, because sometimes I'll schedule a few things for a week, and then that next week, the second week, I don't know what to post because I put it all in the first week. So I just have to kind of come up with it as I am creating the samples, as I'm creating the step outs for the class, as I am recording anything that I might want to pre-record before the class, and just kind of using those snippets. And then so yeah, I schedule when I can. I schedule when the creativity is there. I do suggest scheduling because it does make everything so much easier. And if you have launched this several times, you will already have posts in your past that you can copy and paste, maybe with some updated pictures, maybe with the same pictures, but reuse your content. You don't always have to come up with something brand new. Of course, this year, everything I've been doing has been pretty brand new. So I've been trying to figure out what to post, what I like posting about, what I'm enjoying talking about, and how I like talking about what I'm talking about. Do I like to do a reel on it? Do I like to do a stagnant post? Do I like the carousel? I really do like the carousel. I think the movement in it is really fun, and what's going to be on the next slide. So it's really fun for me, but it does take a lot of time to do a carousel and make it the way I want it.
Yeah, I do want to share one resource that I have found very, very helpful. And that is a friend of mine named Regine, and her business is Social Media Snapshots with a Z at the end. And she creates these bundles of social media graphics, and So she has different packages for every month of the year. You can get a collection. So we're coming up on November. So we'll have lots of harvest and Thanksgiving and autumn themed pictures in her bundle. And you may think, oh, my business isn't making enough money for me to be spending on something like that. But it really is a good investment in terms of saving time, because you can just sprinkle those pre-made posts, schedule them ahead of time. So you're saving your time, you're showing up, you've got this on theme, this timely image that you can put your own caption, your own voice with, and it just gives you a starting point. And then, you purchase it once and you can recycle some of those the next time that season rolls around on the calendar. So it's just a great resource to have in my back pocket. And my second tip would be to slow down when you're creating and take a minute to take lots of behind the scenes pictures, because like you said, as you're leading up to a new offer or working on a new project, we may feel that we have to keep things secret until the reveal date. And yes, that's true, but you can do some interesting editing things. So you're just showing sneak peeks of things, and that will build the curiosity in your audience and get them ready when you are able to launch and show the full finished project. So take lots of behind the scenes pictures. So I really like using those pre-made posts that I can recycle for the big holidays every year. What about you, Tori? How do you approach that kind of content and prep work?
So I approach it a little different. So what I do is I make my own seasons. And I don't mean like literally. I mean, when I want to launch something, that is my season. In between launching, I post when I feel like it. I try to do 3 posts a week, but I am not on there because I feel like I need to be on there. I make content for my newsletter, and that is where my focus is. So when I get that newsletter written, usually I do a blog post, and now I've been sharing our podcast episodes, which has been really cool. So moving forward in between launches, what I'll be sharing is what I'm working on in my newsletters, or I'm only going to give my all before a launch. So I can kind of prep them. I can bring in some new people. I can share what I'm doing, because I'm always very excited during a launch. It takes a lot of energy, but I'm always super excited, and it's easy, so much easier to be on social media when you're excited about what is coming and what you're doing now than it is to try to come up with things randomly throughout the season. So for me, I make my own seasons where I'm more active on social media and seasons where I'm less active on purpose, because I don't have the bandwidth to be on there all the time. And that is something I encourage in DMMC, is to do what you like. And moving into our last stages, I talk about focusing and finessing, which means you're focusing when you need to focus, and then you finesse before you launch again. So you're focusing on where you need to focus. You're doing what you need to do in the place that you want to be, and then you'll share it out there.
Yeah, and I like that you are working with your own energy and not trying to chase after some unrealistic expectation, that you just can really be kind to yourself and put that extra effort in when it's needed, and then you don't have to go 100 miles an hour forever.
Exactly. Now, if you end up posting more 1 week or 2 when you're not launching and you're just excited and you have ideas, that is great. That's amazing. But don't feel like you have to do that all the time.
Yeah. So hopefully we have sparked some ideas for our audience, and we always like the feedback. So if you have some questions or your own thoughts on what has worked on social media, what you're excited to be sharing, please let us know. There's such a variety of ways to get in touch with us. Our email is linked in the show notes. You can visit the quiltingontheside.com website for more information. And we always appreciate reviews. What was the goal there, Tori, for reviews?
We're trying to hit 25 reviews. So if you could help us, that would be amazing, because reviews are how we reach new people. And don't forget, we've got an event coming up, Andi.
We'd love to have you join us for our Black Friday prep party. This is an hour dedicated to working on your social media and getting things all lined up for that big sales event. You can find the registration information at quiltingontheside.com. We hope to see you there. But before we go, I wanted to ask, especially in light of social media and Instagram, who is inspiring you? Who do you like to follow on Instagram?
I want to pull her name up so I don't say it wrong. But yes, the person that I am really enjoying on Instagram, who has this great aesthetic, I love like everything she is doing, is Amy Lawless of Happy Hippie Studios. And I love her branding that she's done. I think it is beautiful and engaging, and it really kind of showcases what she's creating. And it's really fun. Whenever her pictures pop up, I get excited to see them.
I like to follow some of the bigger names to get ideas sometimes for those trendy reels and then put a quilty spin on it. So people like Shalene Johnson or Jasmine Starr are good to learn some social media tactics from.
I do want to do a special shout out for one of our guests, but Beth Ann shares a really fun way to approach social media. And it really brought me back to what social media was for, which is that social aspect. So definitely check out Beth Ann's episode on social media. She shares like a masterclass, like a shortened masterclass in social media. And it was amazing to talk to her.
And I have recently been enjoying Quilt with Miss Kate. She is a quilter on the island of Maui. So she really exploded with the relief efforts after the fire, but she just has such a fresh, fun approach that I really enjoy seeing her posts pop up in my feed. And we'd love to hear from our listeners too. We always love finding new quilters and new accounts that are fun and inspiring. So please let us know who you enjoy on social media. And if you enjoyed this episode of Quilting on the Side, please leave us a review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
And hit the subscribe button so you don't miss our next chat. Until then, remember to have fun in your business and do a little quilting on the side.